What up, everyone, and welcome back to the Real Estate Unlocked podcast. I am your host, Joseph Marone, and today we're coming at you back to back with another game-changing episode on pre-foreclosures. But this time, instead of talking about how to get a pre-foreclosure deal, we're going to be talking about what happens after you lock down that pre-foreclosure deal. See, this is the part that really separates the pros from the newbies. You've got a deal under contract, but now what? We're going to be breaking down how to properly structure these deals, the steps you need to take after securing them, and the exit strategies to help you make the most out of these opportunities. Plus, we're going to be breaking down how to scale your business to the next level while doing it. Pre-foreclosures are a powerful way to secure deals, but just because you got it under contract doesn't mean the deal's closed yet. It's all about how you handle the next steps, taking the right actions, making the right calls, and yep, you guessed it, having the right strategies in place to make sure that that contract turns into a paycheck. Now, you know how we do it on the Real Estate Unlocked podcast. If we're going to do it, we got to do it right. We can't just bring on anyone to speak about pre-foreclosures. We got to bring on the man who's crushing it in pre-foreclosures. Today, our special guest on the podcast is Jon Fothergil. Growing up in New Hampshire, Jon has always had an interest in business and sales. After spending years in the sales industry, he made that leap into real estate full-time 3 years ago, starting with wholesaling. As the business evolved, so did the strategy. Over the last 6 months, Jon has really niched down on pre-foreclosures, providing homeowners with solutions during challenging times. Today, about 80% of his deals are flipped, while the remaining 20% are wholesaled, creating a dynamic and profitable approach to real estate investing. Jon joins us today to not only educate us on how to get these pre-foreclosure deals across the finish line, but also he'll be sharing with us some of the strategies he's using when he's exiting these properties. So without further ado, I've been talking long enough. Everyone, if you will, please allow me to formally introduce to you Jon Fothergil. Jon, what's up, my brother? How you feeling today?
Joe, my guy from the West Coast. How we doing, buddy?
We're doing good, man. How's everything going on there on the East Coast, man?
A little chilly, but we're used to it.
Yeah, I hear you, man. So how's your week kicking off, brother?
Been good. So, one thing that's actually really helped me recently, and I'm sure you've seen this as well, in the Owners Club, is that calendar series.
Right.
So,
Game changer.
Game changer, right? So, Mondays is kind of usually just, catching up on all the files, catching up with our TCs, things that we need to do to get stuff across the finish line, and making sure that we're prioritizing our time, blocking off our time, to get deals across the finish line, like I was saying. And that's been a huge help. I don't know about you, but that calendar series, man, has been game changer. It all starts with the calendar, right?
Yeah, man. I used to be all over the place, and it kind of became overwhelming, right? Because you have so many tasks to do, and learning how to really map that out and build out your calendar, game changer, like you said, man. It's really helped me find more clarity. I'm being more intentional in everything I'm doing now, and yeah, man, I love it. I'm glad we got taught that, and I'm gonna be using that for the rest of my life moving forward, man.
Me too, man. It's crazy. It's all about leveraging your time. Everyone's got 24 hours, right?
Right.
Reading that book, like Buy Back Your Time. It talks about, like Elon Musk, right? He's the best at leveraging his time. Everyone's got 24 hours in a day. It's how you use it. So
Yes.
So that's been huge for us. So
awesome, bro. Well, Jon, welcome to the Real Estate Unlocked podcast, a place where we bring massive value to entrepreneurs by bringing on experts such as yourself to break down real estate strategies that are not just understandable, but immediately actionable. So, Jon, last week we had the pleasure to bring on Nita Patel, and we pretty much covered everything there is to know about how to start investing in pre-foreclosures and stopping those auctions. So if anyone here is watching this right now and you missed that video, I'll go ahead and highlight it in the top right corner. I highly recommend you go back and watch that video first. then come back here because today, Jon, we're going to be talking about what happens after you get that pre-foreclosure deal. Now, we got a lot here to cover, bro, so I don't want to waste any time. Jon, let's just jump right into it.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me on, man. This is awesome. I'm super proud of what you built, brother. I remember when we were talking in Owners Club, and you're like, "Yo, bro, I'm thinking about starting a podcast." And
yeah,
kudos to you for actually, taking what you said and running with it and sticking with it, man. I'm honestly super proud to see your growth, man. This has been awesome to watch. So I'm happy to be here.
Dude, I appreciate that, man. It means a lot, man, because I've been having a lot of fun with this podcast and it's been doing some great things for me, man. It's been building some great connections. So cool, brother. Well, I appreciate that. Well, we're just going to dive right into it, man. We wasted enough time as it is. We got to give the people what they want, brother. So now, Jon, a lot of people, they focus on cold calling or texting, right? When it comes to pre-foreclosures, but you're out there knocking doors.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you choose the door knock as your strategy, and how well has this approach been working for you?
So door knocking is definitely something that we've started recently. Like I said, probably within the last 6 months, we really put a focus on it. I was gonna say, honestly, prior to that was probably just laziness. We decided to door knock, honestly, because a lot of people don't want to, right?
Right.
And with a lot of these situations, we're coming across sellers that are in very, 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 very tight timelines. And a lot of these people, as I'm sure Nita probably mentioned in her episode, these are people that are extremely hard to get a hold of, right? Yep. Just put yourself in their shoes for a second, right? They got a week before their foreclosure sale. The bank's been sending them a letter every other day, blowing up their phone. So if you know their mortgage isn't paid, you know that probably their credit card's not paid, their car's not getting paid. So you can imagine how many calls and texts and emails these people are getting inundated with. A lot of them actually end up getting a burner phone. A lot of them just shut off their cell phones completely. Right. And so sometimes these people, the only way to get a hold of them is to go door knock. And, we found great success. I would say probably right now, I mean, I have to look at the exact numbers. I would say probably 65 to 70% of our deals are coming from door knocking. So it's been very, very effective. It's just, I think a lot of people have a preconceived kind of fear in their head about knocking on a door, especially, I'm not trying to sound like a geezer here, but like some of the younger people, you know what I mean?
Right.
I've never had an issue talking with people, walking up to random people, starting conversations, as I'm sure you found out, hanging out with me. So getting over that fear, but it's really, and here's the other thing too, is when we have a short timeline, when you knock on somebody's door and they answer, it's a lot harder to hang up on somebody when they're standing on your porch. Right. And so it's a little bit easier to maybe get a foot in the door when you're right there and they know that they have an issue and you have a solution for them. It makes the conversions a lot easier. So a cool story actually was this kid, Nick, that I met at a meetup around here. My car was actually in the shop getting my transmission done. And so I was like, hey, listen, like, what are you doing this weekend? Are you around? Because he ended up living like 10 minutes up the road from me and he kind of wanted to get into the real estate investing space. And so I was like, listen, I got some addresses. I got to go door knock. You want to just come pick me up? Right. Mm-hmm. And so picked him up, literally knocked 5 doors. By the 5th door, we had a contract in our hand. So
dude, that's badass.
It's crazy. Yeah. So, I would definitely advise anybody that is looking to get their feet wet in, real estate investing, especially with pre-foreclosures. If you're doing the cold calling and the texting, it doesn't hurt to just even take one day out of the week, get out of your chair, sitting behind the computer and making those cold calls or whatever. And then just start with like one day a week. I would also suggest, like, if you have a friend in the area, go with them in the beginning, because I'm not going to lie, door knocking solo for your first time can be a little bit scary. So
yeah,
I would suggest like buddy up, but yeah, door knocking is super powerful. And again, a lot of people are not, willing to do it, especially up here. I mean, it's 15 degrees out. We just had 3 inches of snow last night. And so, not a lot of competition. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because you're right, man. Like these people in pre-foreclosure, they have so many people calling them, right? They owe the credit cards, they owe all the things, right? And so everybody's blowing them up. And the last thing they're going to be doing is answering the phone calls. So the two best ways to go about it is either texting, which I found success doing that, or
Mhm.
like you said, door knocking. Now, door knocking is going to be the best, right? Because if you're able to get a face-to-face interaction with that person, you're going to beat out anybody on the phone all day long. I think you even said it one time. We were joking around, and you're like, I don't care how good of a negotiator you are on the phone, Joe. If I get in front of that doorstep, man, I'm still in that deal.
Oh,
You know,
100%.
and it's true, right? And the thing is, a lot of people, man, they get really intimidated, like, having conversations face to face. But if you're an outgoing person and you're used to talking to people face to face, you're not going to have any issues. It's just more of a mental block, right? It's that mental barrier, getting past that. And so one of the things I wanted to talk about was like, when that homeowner opens that door, what's that initial conversation like? Are you doing anything different to separate yourself from the 30 other people that just came knocking on their door before you?
Yeah, 100%. First of all, what I would say would really help me, and this kind of will tie into what I'm about to speak about in relation to what you just said, is first of all, it's got to be a mentality shift of when you
Hmm.
go up to the door, right? So when I first started door knocking, I was so focused on what are they going to say to me, and I was so like reactionary of, I was like tense going up to the door, anticipating that someone's going to be mean to me
Hmm.
knocking, right? And so a part of I'm not sure if you're familiar with Michael Frankie, but anyone that doesn't
Yep.
know, please go check out his YouTube. Unbelievable guy. He said something to me that's like, listen, we're here to serve people, and when people answer the door, we're not the problem. The lender is, right? So listen, like these people again are in an extremely stressful, overwhelming situation, something that a lot of people aren't equipped to handle. And so most people's reaction is just to be like, get out of here, or just try and like get you off the door. And so when we approach the door, we'll literally knock on the door, once, twice, three times. If they answer, we want to exude empathy is what I always say. Like we want to be over empathetic and tell people like, listen, we're really just here to help. And so let's say no, someone knocks on the door, Joe, you answer, go a little bit something like this. Hey, Joe, my name is John. I really apologize for kind of interrupting your day, but I did notice that the lender's kind of giving you a hard time with the upcoming sale next week. And I really just want to stop by to offer our help. Is there anything that you need help with? Stopping the sales, something along that. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Like there's not one script that is like the magic script that works, right? You kind of got to like, use a basic message of, hi, I understand like this is a very overwhelming situation. I'm not I'm not here to, put any more pressure on you. I'm here to actually alleviate that pressure from the lender. And as long as you can convey that message that you're here to help them and support them, not, force them to sell their house or anything like that, because that's a lot of the messaging that they're getting from a lot of other investors is, hey, listen, we know you're in a tough situation, but, let us step in and just buy the house. Well, a lot of these people initially don't want to sell their house, right? And so
Right.
you need to convey that to them, just to at least get into the door. And you may find out that selling the house is the best option for them, but some people may be able to stay in the home. But I think a lot of it, especially with the door knocking, is a mentality shift of listening. I'm here to help. I'm here to serve. And if you go in with a really empathetic mindset, it really takes the kind of the sting out of door knocking.
Yeah, and you're constantly leading with value, right? Because a lot of people out there are just straight to the point. Hey, saw you're in a tough spot. Just want to see if you're willing to sell your home. And 90%, 95% of people are using that approach. So you're coming across different, right? You're coming out as an helpful source, someone that can provide value and go over some options to help you keep the home, correct? That's kind of the
100%.
strategy you're going with. Okay, great. So I know you come across all types of, people when you're knocking at doors. And like you said, I had that issue in the beginning, right? Because I used to always think like, damn, somebody's gonna cuss me out, they're gonna slam the door in my face. But then when you come across people that actually need your help and want your help, it's a whole different mindset shift. And then you're like, man, like I was in my own head, right? Like this person actually was waiting for me to knock on their door and to bring value to them. And it's just a good feeling knowing that you can actually help people in this space instead of just being transactional, right?
100%. And a cool story about that, guys, is when you really think about it. I mean, we do kind of, we have to hit these guys or these sellers from different angles, because different people respond to different marketing, right? And so there's no one size fits all with these people as far as like, oh, pre-foreclosures, like texting works really good or cold calling works really good. You kind of got to do a little bit of everything to get a hold of these people. And yeah, like you're 100% right. We're trying to provide value, and if there is a pathway for them to keep the home, we're going to go down that pathway 100%, right?
Yes.
It's all about, giving them the resources and kind of asking the right questions to really uncover what their situation is and hopefully point them in the right direction.
Yeah, well, John, you're doing a hell of a job, man. You're crushing it out here with the door knocking, and you're very good at what you do, right? You're very well spoken. You know the right things to say. You know how to speak to these sellers. What are some of the more challenging objections you've got thrown at you when you're out there door knocking?
Yeah. In the beginning, it was always, don't worry, we got it taken care of. Right. And so
Right.
my first few doors, I'd be like, great, perfect, good to hear. And boom, I was out of there. Right. I like
Mhm.
couldn't wait to get the hell out of there. I was like, well, it's another KPI. Right.
Almost
And
like you
so,
were waiting for them to say no.
oh yeah. Yeah. I was waiting for the no. Right. I was like,
Yeah.
oh God, I don't have to. Um, so again, there's really only a handful. I have it taken care of, or we have an attorney. Um, we're gonna file bankruptcy. There's usually about 4 or 5 that you're gonna get. Typically, it's just standing there and asking the next question, right? So, for instance, if you knock and they're like, "Hey, listen, don't worry about it. I got it taken care of." That's excellent. You know what? I'm glad to hear that. What is it exactly that you were able to do to get it taken care of? Just curious. And they'd
Mm,
be like, they'll either tell you what they did, or they're going to give you a vague answer, on which, if it's a vague answer, then you need to press a little bit more. Oh, well, we're just, we're working with the bank. Excellent. I think that's probably one of the best things that you should do. When you say
mhm.
you're working with the bank, what exactly are you doing? Are you doing a loan mod, or can you just explain a little bit more? Right. And so you're going to
You're getting
uncover
them to
more and
talk
more.
a little bit. You're getting them to open up, right? Because 'Cause they're
That's
clammed
it.
up. They don't wanna give you any information.
Their number one goal when they answer the door is to get you out of there.
Yeah,
That's their number one goal. Your number
facts.
one goal is to stay on that porch as long as you can.
Yes.
That's it.
Okay, cool, man. Yeah, that's great. So, like, in your opinion, do you feel that face-to-face interactions give you an advantage to overcome these objections compared to just being on the phone and cold calling?
100%. Because again, right? I mean, it's something with human nature, right? I mean, when someone's at your kitchen table, sitting down with you face to face, it's just, you can build a lot more trust and rapport when you actually can look someone in the eye and, be in the home with them, and actually be like a pad of paper on the dining room table with their mortgage statements, going like line by line with them, right? I
Right.
mean, that is going to be a lot more powerful, where it's like they feel, and I will never sit across from the table from somebody. If they're
Mm,
on the table, I'll always pull up a chair next to them. So when we're looking at the documents, it's not like in a negotiation.
I love that.
You know what I mean? So I'm always trying to pull up next to them and be like, "Hey, let's sit down and really dig into your situation and figure out like if there's any possibility to keep you in this home. And if not, can we be your safety net?" And then you literally, like, when I'm at the kitchen table going line by line and I actually go detail into their situation, I'm going to uncover a lot more pain, and I'm going to build a lot more rapport than some Joe Schmo just calling them over the phone, So,
Yeah, dude,
um,
that's so powerful, right? Because if you're sitting across from them from the table, you're almost like the salesperson. You're that sales guy trying to sell a car. when you put yourself and position yourself on the side of them, now you position yourself as like more of an advisor, like a consultant. I'm helping you through this process rather than trying to sell you on something.
100%.
Take notes on that, guys. That's powerful. Glad you
And
brought that up.
we're just Sherpas, right? With questions. We just got to guide people down the path using the right questions, and hopefully lead them to the right outcome.
Yeah, and on top of that too, I think what really helps out is that they get to know you're a real person, right? Because when you're on the phone, like we live in a day and age where people are calling from different markets. You don't know what to believe online no more. There's a lot of scam artists out there, especially with AI going on. Being there face to face just lets them know, hey, John's a real person, right? He's actually in the business. He's going to help me out, and he's here. He's here on my porch. He's here face to face with me right now. So yeah, I agree with that. So John, correct me if I'm wrong, but here's what I find to be the hardest transition for most investors as they're working these leads. Let's say the homeowner wants to keep their home, right? But their current financial situation, they're just kicking that can down the road. And keeping the home isn't going to be the best solution for them. Maybe walk us through how you approach that conversation. How do you transition from I'm here to help and go through these options to help you keep your home to, hey, maybe selling the home is probably the better option for you?
Yeah. I think this was probably, and we're still working on this. Like I said, this is always going to be a process that we're going to try and get better at. And it really comes down to a sales process. And I'll tell you a quick story to kind of set up for why we're really focusing on this now is, in the beginning, when we started doing this, again, the majority of our deals are kind of structured in a way, and we can talk more about this later, but more structured in a way where we'll reinstate it and then work with the seller on the back end. And again, we can get into some more deal structure later, but in the beginning, it's just when a seller hears something they like, they're going to want to say yes. And as an investor that doesn't have a lot of leads are leverage, I say, right? Leads are leverage.
Right.
The more leads you have, the more leverage you have with all these other sellers. And so in the beginning, what we were doing is we were kind of bending our knee to the seller where they're like, I really wish I could just stay here for 6 to 12 months and maybe I can just rent free for this long. And then I'll sign the contract. And so we're like bending over backwards to like try and make a deal, out
Because
of
it
it.
was a deal, right? You were trying to favor them because you're like, I just want the deal.
Right. Because I'm like, I really, I need a deal. So, contracts are sexy, right? You can post
Yeah.
them on freaking Instagram and you look cool, right? But the problem is the longer the person's in the home is just the more and more headaches we run into. And so, and not only that, on the seller side, when you think about it, right? And this is kind of going to tie back into your question is by you reinstating that loan. Let's say their mortgage payment's $1,000 a month, and they're on a $1,500 a month Social Security income, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they have a $30,000 reinstatement, and you reinstate it. Now you got to pay that $1,000 and jack up their rent to $1,250. So they only have $250 of disposable income. Have you met the seller's needs by keeping them in the home? 100%. But have you actually solved the seller's problem?
No.
Right. Because what's going to change their circumstances? They're not going to come into, either unless they hit the lottery, like their income's not going to change. They're on a fixed income. What they really need is the equity that's tied up in their home. Right.
Mm.
And so a lot of these people, and what I've noticed, I know that you dabble in a little pre-foreclosure too, but most of our clients are older, right? They're on fixed incomes, or something medically happened to them and they're older and they couldn't pay the mortgage. Like it's kind of rare that we come across like younger couples. But it's usually, older people. You run into a lot of fixed incomes, things like that. And so you have to paint that picture of, listen, right now you're facing a foreclosure in a week. And I know that because a lot of these people, when you think about it, they've stayed here for 20, 30 years. So they're very attached emotionally to the property. They can't
Right.
they can't see the outcome. And so you kind of have to pit one outcome against another and really paint the picture. Like for instance, option number one, seller, is we reinstate your loan, but your payment's $1,000. Like I was saying, we got to now increase it to $1,250, and that doesn't really solve the issue. Or option B is you have rent, all your bills are paid for the next 6 or 12 months. You have a little bit of disposable income to pay off maybe some of those credit cards. Now you're in a position where you don't have to worry about bills. You have a roof over your head. You don't have to worry about deciding between putting gas in your car or putting food in the fridge, right? What sounds better? Staying down this path to where you stay in the home, but you're still robbing Peter to pay Paul every month just to make ends meet? Or does option B look better, to where you have that financial cushion and you're not worried about the bills and the fridge is full of food and the electricity is paid, right? Like I understand that, you may be attached to these four walls, but is that really the outcome that's going to put you in the best position moving into the next chapter of your life, right? And so you really have to, kind of, like I say, going like line by line, like I said earlier, like get out the mortgage statement, get out all their statements, and literally be like, what's your pay stub, and let's do it out. And you can, when you do it out, you can just be like, listen, can I be honest with you here? I don't think the math's not mathing, right? Like, I'm gonna steal a little line from Michael Frankie. He loves that line, but he's like, listen, the math ain't mathing, and we're also not a charity, right? In order for us to help other sellers, we have to buy good deals.
Yeah.
Right. So if we're
families, right?
100%. And so you think about it, right? It's your cash conversion cycle. If you get into these deals where the sellers are staying in your properties 6, 12, 24 months at a time, that's just money that's locked into deals, and you're eventually going to run out of capital. And if you run out of capital, you can't serve anyone else. Right. And so it's not selfish for you to paint that picture of, listen, like, I know you want to stay here, but the best outcome is really for you to leave. So you're really positioning the seller in a better spot, and you're positioning yourself in a better spot to be able to increase your cash conversion cycle so you can go out and help more people, especially in the beginning, right? Especially if you're a newbie, you want to get cash now so you can reinvest in your business, start building out your team and doing all that stuff. So
yeah, because this is where I'm seeing, and I know you probably see it too. This is probably where a lot of people are struggling the most, right? They're really good at talking to the seller and helping out the homeowner and going through the options. But when it comes down to the time to get them to, understand that it's time to sell, these options ain't gonna work. Because I mean, let's be honest, man. Like, I know you've seen it yourself. So loan modifications. Let's talk about that, right? Like if you have a homeowner that has a extremely low interest rate, like 2-3%, and they can't even keep up with those payments and they're behind, what makes you think a loan modification is going to solve any of their problems, especially with today's interest rates at 7%? I've had homeowners where I've got them approved for a loan modification, but their payment jumps up $1,000 a month, and then they go from a 30-year amortization schedule to a 40-year. How? And I literally had to have this conversation with the bank, and I'm like, how do you feel like this is helping out the homeowner? This is not going to help them. And they'll even tell you even when I had them on three-way, they're like, well, maybe it's time for them to sell, you know? and that's the harsh reality. And you have to, and this is where a lot of people struggle, because now you have to position from, okay, I'm here to help you save your home, but now, hey, we're kind of just kicking down the can down the road. Like, this is actually going to be the better option for you. Restart your life, move on to this next chapter, and restart, right? And so that's really the hardest part I see a lot of people have, in this industry when they're started out in pre-foreclosures. So I like that, because you have to physically paint that picture. You have to show them in their mind what that actually looks like, and you're doing a good job at it. So good stuff.
Well, you think about it. I mean, when you've lived in the same house for 20 years and you haven't moved in 20 years, it's hard to people get stuck in their ways. That's just what humans are, right? Like, humans are naturally adaptable, right?
Yeah.
Like, you read books of like David Goggins, and I don't know if you're into like Navy SEALs and stuff, but they go through what's called BUDS training, and they have Hell Week. I'm sure you've probably heard of it. Well, you're from
Yep.
California. That's where they train in Coronado or whatever. But yeah, it's just the mentality of it, of just, you got to just keep pushing through. So
Yeah, so I feel like a lot of investors do well when it comes to like building the rapport and walking these sellers through the options, like I was saying. But when it's time to sit down and negotiate, people get nervous or they don't know what to say or how to properly secure the deal. They pretty much fumble the bag, right? So,
yeah.
what advice do you have, or what can these individuals do to improve their game so that they can close more deals like you and your team?
Yeah. Everything, and we're starting to find this out the hard way, is everything comes down to processes and frameworks and checklists, right? And so every appointment, because the beauty of focusing on one niche, and this I think applies to anything in real estate, is it becomes very repeatable, right? And so
Yeah.
because when I first started out doing wholesaling, we were doing like everything. We were doing like high equity. We're doing
Expired listings, low
right,
equity,
bro.
all that
Yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
dude. Any list you tell me, and we were hitting it. But
Yep.
the thing is, we're dialing different markets, different lists, and so every phone call, you had to ask, really, really good questions to uncover that person's specific reason for selling, right?
Mhm.
Whereas this, when I walk up to the door, I know when their sale date is. I know how much time they have before they could potentially lose the home. So I know pretty much what the situation is. All I need to do is fill in exactly how they got there. And so what it does is it makes it very, very repeatable. And so we've kind of like adopted Michael Frankie's 5-option framework, where it's just the same 5 things every single time. And
Right.
once you get enough reps of it, you start seeing similarities in situations and what people say, and how to, connect that into what a good next question would be. A great book I would suggest someone to read, just to get like a sales framework down, is You Can't Teach a Kid How to Ride a Bike at a Seminar. He teaches the submarine, Sandler
Yep.
submarine, they call it.
Such a great book.
It's unreal. But again, even the sales process, because a lot of people think of the sales process as like an art, where
Yep.
it's like some people just got it. You know what I mean? Like some people are just salespeople, some people aren't, you know what I mean? Like, but it's not true. It's just, if you have a framework for everything and you can make it repeatable, you can hone it in as a system, it'll get better and better over time. And so you have to, really make sure that you stick to the framework and you're going through each option in depth. Because that's another thing that I've learned too, is when I'm not really focused, and I'm not, going through each options very, very in depth and asking the right questions, that sometimes the contracts are kind of what I call, the contracts are flimsy, is what I call.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is sometimes you have sellers second guess, right? Like when you get something under contract and then you're pulling title, weeks go by, and then next thing you know, some cousin comes out of nowhere and they're like, well, actually, I don't know if I want to go through with this, right?
Yep.
I'm sure you've probably had that happen. Dude,
Absolutely.
99% of it's because you didn't do a good enough job providing value in the sales process.
Yeah. And even like funny story is when I first did one of my first sub 2 deals, my TC Amanda, she was like, "Hey, so just quick question, did you go over the due on sale clause with them?" And I'm like, no, I didn't go over that. They didn't ask." And she's like, "Yeah, you might want to go over that with them because it's going to come up when we're talking about the contract and going over the agreement. And last thing I want is for the deal to fall apart as I'm walking them through that." And that's just you have to do better, right? Like if you're walking them through the options, like you said, go over it in detail. And what I like to do, and I know Michael Frankie teaches this as well, is like we want them to pretty much disqualify themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You're walking through that option, and then you're like, so I guess this might not be the best option for you. Can we agree on that? Yeah, I agree. Okay, let's go on to option 2. And then you're going through those options. But yeah, it's really asking great questions and, like you said, and open-ended questions, but a lot of it is very, repeatable, like you said. And once you master these objections and learn them, it's the same questions, it's the same objections every single time. You might get a situation that may be a little bit different, but for the most part, it's pretty much all the same. So, now, as John, as you're knocking the doors and you're going through the options, and the seller tells you, "Hey, you know what? I prefer to sell." How do you go about structuring the deal in a way that works for both you and the seller? Because
Yeah.
we're in this business to be, we want it to be a fair, we want it to be a win-win situation for both, right? So, what's your process for making sure that everyone walks away from the deal happy?
Yeah. And this is going to vary different depending on what your experience level is. I'm assuming most of the people that watch your show are trying to get into real estate, trying to get their feet wet. So I'm probably going to focus this answer more on, let's say from 0 to 10 deals, let's say, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Um, when structuring the deals, I would like to keep it as simple and as clean as possible, especially in the beginning. I would also try and stay away from like super low equity deals. Okay. Because what we found is, like you said, we want to make it a win-win for the seller. And if you're just starting out, if they have 50% equity and the house is in decent shape, you can negotiate a deal where the seller's going to walk away with a decent chunk of money. You'll walk away with a decent chunk of money, and whatever your exit strategy is whatever your exit strategy is. But having enough equity in the property to start is one thing that I would focus on.
Yeah, Nita talked about that, about pre-scrubbing the data,
Yep.
and she's right, because I used to do that in the beginning. I was just grabbing anything off a list and, taking my shot shooting my shot. But it's important to pre-scrub the data and know that you at least got 40% equity is what she recommended. So, yep, good point.
Yeah, so that's another one. And then in the beginning, it is very tempting for you to be like, oh, I'm going to let the seller stay here for 6 months, right? Especially in the beginning, I would like for people to try to stay away from, the reinstating and letting them stay there, and try to lean more of painting the picture of, like I was saying before, is, you need capital now, and structuring it to where it's just, a cash transaction. Because number one, with cash transactions, you're going to have a lot bigger buyer pool. A lot more investors are just comfortable with cash. They understand it. A typical like 14, 15 or 30-day post-possession period for the seller. That's just a very, very kind of similar structure to that a lot of investors are comfortable with, and kind of like a little ninja trick. If you're just starting out and you don't have any buyers whatsoever, but you have the auction list, go to an auction and talk to the people at the auction and just say, hey, listen, I see that you guys are buying a lot of homes at the auctions. What if I could tell you I can get you a shot at these things before they hit the auction? Would you be interested? 99% of these dudes would be like, oh, hell yeah. Like, give me your number. Let me know. So the good thing about these guys is they buy sight unseen, right? These guys are used to buying sight unseen. They're used to dealing with tenants. They buy at auctions. So some of these people are obviously in the houses when they buy them. And a lot of them have their own cash, right? So they can close quickly. So especially in the beginning, you may not know what the house is worth, how much the repairs are, because anyone that hasn't flipped a home, if you think you know what the rehab cost is, go F yourself, dude. You don't. So, sorry.
Yeah.
But
No, dude, that is so good, man, because a lot of people are using these other third-party softwares trying to grab buyers. They're going to meetups. You're like, dude, I'm just gonna go straight to the auction where people are actually buying these homes anyways. And then I'm approaching them and I'm like, hey, let me get your contact information because I can get you a better deal than this one right here. And we just deal directly. And then now you can find yourself some really legit buyers. Like you said, they're just ready to go, cash on hand. So
100%.
that's
And
great tip.
what you can do too is, let's say you're walking into the home. Once let's say you have two or three of those guys in your back pocket, you can literally send them the address, be like, hey, listen, where would you need to be on something like this, assuming that, it's going to need some work. And they'll give you kind of like a ballpark. And then while you're in there, a lot of those guys, like I said, if you can just take good enough pictures, that's good enough for them. They don't need to walk the property. You know what I mean? And so, especially in the beginning, if you're not comfortable with your numbers, you're not comfortable with your underwriting, let someone that does that all the time do it for you, right? It's like, hey, I'm heading to this address, trying to lock this thing up. Where would you need to be at for me to make this thing a good deal for you? Now you already know where you need to be at. You don't need to, negotiate against anybody else. And that actually helps you when when you're working with the seller, because you're going to come across a lot of sellers that, they have an auction in 3 days and, their house is they owe 300 grand and their house is worth 600 grand. And they're like, well, I want 300 grand.
Yeah.
And you're like, again, the math ain't math, and lady, like, I'm sorry, but I can't give you 300 grand. The house is worth, you as an investor, you understand, because of all the fees and everything. So, yeah, that really helps to, establish those relationships so you can go into the appointment knowing kind of where you want to be at. So, because again, the whole thing about getting these things under contract is getting them across the finish line, right?
Yeah.
Like having that solid buyer lined up, especially in the beginning when you don't have the resources to be able to take these down, it's invaluable, because it's going to make the process so much smoother. And your cash conversion, like I was saying, is going to be a lot quicker. So especially in the beginning, try to get a few good buyers in your back pocket. And I would try to avoid, keeping sellers in homes, long term, and doing more of like the ninja strategies where we're, reinstating it, letting them live there, potential to buy it back. I mean, there's a million different exit strategies that you can do, but I would say definitely in the beginning, unless if you wanted to do something where you're going to reinstate and maybe keep them long term, partner with somebody that's done it, right? Partner with somebody that has the experience, that has the capital, that can operate a rental. Because here's the thing is, you're essentially going to be renting to somebody that's proven to banks and everybody else that they don't pay their shit.
Right.
I mean to swear, but
you're good. You're good.
But essentially, right? So, and you can have that conversation with the seller and just be like, listen, I understand we're friends now, but I've seen this happen in the past to where, I reinstated somebody's loan and I actually let them stay there for less than what the mortgage was, and they still stop paying me. And then guess what? I have to put my investor hat on, and you're not going to like when I put my investor hat on, and it's probably not going to end well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't want to have that kind of relationship with you. So honestly, and so you can kind of use that too to veer away from, when sellers are trying to kind of linger in the home.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. When you're first starting out and you're getting these deals, I 100% agree with that. Keep it simple in the beginning. Just do some wholesale deals, or maybe even keep the home yourself and try to turn that into like some type of rental property. Um, I want to get more into some of the strategies that you're doing, because I know you're not just wholesaling. You're flipping these properties. I think a little bit what you were kind of touching on earlier about the 6 months, kind of like an equity split type of thing you were doing. Talk to us a little bit about some of the strategies that you're doing right now that's kind of working for your team. I think we talked a little bit about subtailing and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
What are some of the strategies that's working for you right now?
Yeah. So I would say the majority of our deals are what we call subtails, right? And so subtails are essentially where we reinstate the loan, give the seller a small piece of money up front so they can kind of get their affairs in order. And then we give them the rest when we sell the property. Now, initially, and again, this is kind of goes back to lessons learned, is one of the first deals we did was we structured it as an equity split, to where we reinstated the loan. We were going to pay for all his moving costs up front. We're going to pay for all the rehab to the property, list it for full market value. and then do a 50-50 equity split with the seller on the back end. Now, everything was great. There's a lot of equity in the property. The only problem is we gave him 90 days in the property. And what we tried to do is we tried to have our contractors like work around him.
Mm-hmm.
And it not only did it cause the homeowner to take longer to get out because he was just being a pain in the neck the whole time, but it almost cost us one of our best contractors because he was like, dude, this guy is a slob. All he does is drink and smoke weed. And he's like, oh, he's sleeping during the day. And the house is just disgusting. Like,
yeah,
my guys don't even want to be here with these guys. Right. And so that was kind of like a wake up call of like, all right, we need to do something a little bit differently. So moving forward now, what we've done just to kind of clean things up, and again, there's no right or wrong way once you have the experience of how to structure these, but especially in the beginning is we try and do just flat equity, right? And so for instance, one deal that we're doing right now is she had 100, she owed about 150, and we're giving her 100,000, right? So 250. So we're buying the house for 250. ARV is, I believe, 380.
okay,
And it's a $40,000 reinstatement. So we're gonna reinstate it. We give her $20,000 at close. The house probably needs about 10 grand worth of rehabs, carpet paint, pretty clean. It's a condo in North Andover, Massachusetts. And so we raised the 40K to reinstate it, the 20K to the seller, whatever closing costs and holding costs. And then the remaining 80 is paid out of the sale of the property. Now, the reason we do that is twofold. One, we don't want to give these people just 100 grand at close because they could just say, well, sweet, I got my money. I'm just going to be chilling. Right. And so, and also we would have to raise that private money in second position. And so what we do now is we try and give them like, hey, listen, what is it that you need to, cover your next 6 to 12 months of living expenses? That's how we always want to frame it, is like, what is it that you need to be comfortable to move on to your next chapter? It's never like, hey, you have this much
you want to sell for.
right? It's never like, you got all this equity, how much you want, right?
Yeah, exactly. We're not
so,
retail buyers.
right. Yeah. And so we structured it in a way to where we're able to give her 100 grand, 20 at close, 80 when we 80 when we sell. And so it works out great because, and here's the other thing too, is we've made rules. And what's good too is when you have rules going into deals, it keeps you from doing bad deals, right? So after that first deal that I was telling you about where he was there, so we gave him 90. He was there for like 125 days. So he was way over his time. And it was just a bad process. So we cap ourselves at 45 days, where it's like, if you're not out in 45 days, like we don't let people stay longer than that. And when you have that framework, it kind of allows you to go in and negotiate with that in mind and like avoid getting sucked into what we call like those Frankenstein deals where you got sellers in there for 6 to 12 months and they don't pay. So the majority of our deals, like I said, is reinstate. We'll do a quick rehab. Once they're out, we list it on the market. Starting Q3, Q4, since we're getting these at, pretty decent discounts, we're going to probably start doing more like burrs or even trying to negotiate the equity as a seller finance note on top of the existing debt to where we can hold these more in our portfolio. But the first 6 months of this year is just active income. So we're not really focused on the buy and hold yet. But that's the beauty of pre-foreclosures, guys, is like, there's a million exit strategies that you can do, and you can get really good deals, and you can get them very, very quickly. As I'm sure, in the last episode, I'm sure Nina showed a lot of people, like, if you just stay focused, I think, in my opinion, the fastest way to get a deal in real estate is pre-foreclosure.
Yeah, and she did touch on that. So, but yeah, just kind of going back what you were saying, it sounds very similar to a novation agreement, right?
Yeah.
But the difference is you're doing a subtail, so you're purchasing the property subject to,
Yep.
then you're working with the seller, you're fixing it up, and then you're selling it on the market. You're putting it on retail, right?
Yep.
And so you got a realtor in your space that you work directly with.
Yeah. Shout out Kyle Wozniak. The guy's an absolute beast. This kid, I believe he was a mechanical engineer or electrical engineer. I could be wrong.
Okay,
Kid's 24, 25, sold 60 homes last year. He was like top 5 in New Hampshire for agents. The dude's an absolute beast.
go
His
get her.
dude, he's unreal. He buys multifamilies. So shout out Kyle Wozniak. He does most of our listings. So again, that's stuff that comes over time, guys, is like building out your power team. We call our power team, right? Is
Yeah,
not people that work directly for us. The people are integral in our business: agents, attorneys, our TC. Shout out Lily DeWong at Compass TC. She does all of our files. So the power team is super important, especially for getting them across the finish line, right? Because it doesn't matter how many contracts you sign; it's how many contracts you close, right?
yes.
So
No, they're not working for you, they're working with you. These are your
yeah,
power team,
100%.
right?
Yeah,
So, yeah.
power team are people that own their own businesses, but are integral parts of files. Yeah, like your probate
Title
attorney,
companies and
ti-
TCs and
title companies,
bankruptcy
TC.
attorneys, you work with those?
Yep, bankruptcy attorneys. You got your agents, stuff like that. Yeah, so that's kind of like your power team.
And on the rehab part, are you handling the rehab process, yourself, or are you overseeing it? Do you have a team? What does that look like? And also, how are you ensuring that your rehab stays on budget and on schedule?
Good point. Good point. So, it's me and my brother. So my brother has kind of more of like a blue collar background, did tile, some carpentry, some electrical stuff growing up.
Okay.
He also does work a W-2, but he kind of has a unique W-2 where he runs trade shows for a company. So he'll be like home for 3-4 weeks and then be gone for a week. So
Mm,
he handles most of the rehab. As far as staying on schedule, staying under budget, again, that's kind of like a euphemism, right? It's like staying on budget on schedule on a flip is like a unicorn. It never happens. But
yeah.
but we
You
try
always
our
gotta
best.
plan for ahead, right?
Yeah, so we use a software called Preforeclosure, and it's essentially kind of like a CRM for managing projects. So you have your schedule. We're in the process of kind of building out all of our materials because we're starting to do more like packages on houses to where we're
Okay.
using like same cabinets, same
Yeah.
LVP in every house. So
I mean, why not? You already have all the build
exactly.
out, the cost of material. You might as well just rinse and repeat.
Yeah, so we're in the process of building all those costs into FlipperForce. So our rehabs are getting more and more accurate as everyone that we do is getting better and better. But again, it goes back to all processes and SOPs, and if you're not if you're not following a process, then it's kind of hard to tell where you're going wrong.
Yeah. So give us something that you learned over time that's really helped you scale in the pre foreclosure space. Something that you kind of wish that you knew when you just started out.
Something I wish I knew when I just started out is the power of teaming up with people. Honestly, like
Mm,
people like Caroline Kane, Michael Frankie. Like I met Caroline Kane at Owners Club, and um, we've obviously developed a pretty good relationship, I would say. And so I think a lot of it is getting your pride out of the way,
yeah.
and
That's
especially in
tough.
the beginning, because you're like, I want to do this on my own, and they see the $25,000 check, and they're like, I want all that check. But in the process of getting greedy, trying to get that check, they end up fumbling the bag because they're so stubborn that they don't want to ask for help, right?
Yeah.
And so I would say in the beginning, and I was like that. I'm just a stubborn kid. I grew up, I was a hothead, dude. I was like super competitive in sports. Like I was that kid that like if I didn't win in wiffle ball, I'm like smashing the bat on the ground, like crying.
Oh, you're one of those guys,
Oh,
huh?
dude, I was the worst. I was the worst. Dude.
No, yeah. No, it's just that competitive nature, though.
100%. And so I'm like, no, dude, I'm gonna get this figured out on my own. And I guarantee you, I've probably missed out on hundreds of thousands of dollars because I'm like, no, I'm gonna do this on my own.
Isn't
Right?
that crazy though? Because you're trying to get majority of the pie, right? You're like, I'm gonna get this whole $25,000 check, and so you do it on your own, right? But then you run into all these problems, and then you end up fumbling the bag. You lose the deal, and you could have been making a whole lot more money if you just partnered up with somebody and got the smaller piece and just did a lot more quantity of that. It's crazy.
And here's the thing, guys, is especially in the beginning, the money is not what's important, especially like your first 5 deals. If you make no money on them, great. It's the experience, it's the knowledge, it's seeing how it's done, seeing a deal from front to back, actually being a part of it. Like if I could go back, I would honestly be like, guys, like if I could just jump in a deal, pay me $1 just to partner on this deal with you, just so I can absorb the knowledge and see like actually how a transaction's done from front to back.
Because once you learn that, you're on your own, man. You're gold. You know, that's
100%.
the value in it, not the assignment fee. It's the learning experience and learning how to just rinse and repeat and do it all over again.
100%. Because if you bring a problem to somebody and it's a deal, trust me, like you're gonna learn a lot, but it's also gonna open up a lot of doors and resources, and you're gonna build a relationship with that person. And I guarantee you that person's gonna introduce you to some other people. And that's just how it works. I mean, that's the power of community, and probably the reason why we're sitting here talking right now, right?
Absolutely. So, John, I want to end it off with this, right? Because there's a lot of people, and I know you can attest to this. There's a lot of people in this space that really only talk about their wins. They brag about the wins all the time. But on the Real Estate Unlocked podcast, we keep it original, we keep it real, we keep it raw. I want to talk a little bit more about some of the losses that you face. You know, do you have any stories you could share where one of your deals went sideways and the experience you learned from that?
100%. It would be our first fix and flip. We had been wholesaling for a long time, and again, this really just ties back to what we were just saying. I was like saying to my brother, I was like, looking at all these fix and flippers we're assigning our deals to, and I was like, you know what, dude? I was like, we could do that. It's like, dude, it's just flipping a house, bro. What's the big deal? Like, these guys are making it
hard. Yeah,
we're making a ton of money. We're getting paid 20 grand on each deal. I was like, screw these guys. Let's flip a house, right, dude? So I'm like, all right. We ended up locking up a deal in Manchester. Didn't do an inspection. We walked it. We thought we were freaking, the home makeover gurus over here. We're like, oh, this is going to be cosmetic. No big deal. We'll just do this. New kitchen over here. No big deal. Come to find out. And also we're supposed to like subdivide it and do all this crap. We've never subdivided anything in our lives, dude. Like, I've cut a few like ham sandwiches in my day. That's the most subdividing I've done. But so ended up getting this deal under contract, go to the town, get it all surveyed, pay all this money, can't subdivide the land. That's number one. We're like, oh shit, that's not good. Okay.
That's definitely not good.
That was going to be like the
play.
Yeah, that was the play pretty much. Then coming to find out that the septic is gone, septic shot, got to replace the septic. So that was another 20 G's. Damn. So long story short, I think we ended up making like $500 on that flip or something. Like,
hey, you didn't lose though. They could have been a lot worse.
We didn't lose, but still, it took us 8 to 9 months to get it done.
Yeah, right? So you gotta count for your time too. So you actually
making like a penny an hour.
Yeah, you lost for sure.
Oh, dude, yeah, it was the worst.
The learning experience from it, right? We just talked about that. That's the most valuable lesson. It's all right to make mistakes, guys. Like mistakes are going to happen. In fact, if you're not making mistakes, I don't think you're even actually doing anything. You're not taking enough chances. But learning from those experiences, learning from those and learning how to overcome them next time, that's the value.
You learn way more from your losses than your wins, that's for sure.
Facts. Absolutely. Hell yeah. Well, that's cool, man. Well, Jon, man, I appreciate you a lot, brother. You know, you came on here dropping gems. Absolute honor to have you on the podcast. Like I told you, man, that you're one of my favorite dudes in Sub 2. We'll be seeing each other at Squad Up Summit. I'm looking forward to that. Definitely gonna be buying you your first round, man. And I just can't wait to hang out with you, man. I see you in the community. I see you doing your thing. You're crushing in door knocking space, and just love what you're doing, brother. And I'm honored to call you a friend, bro. So appreciate your time today, man.
Appreciate you, brother. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, Jon, where can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, just hit me up on IG at Jon Fothergil. Also on Facebook at Jon Fothergil. I probably respond most quickly to DMs. So if you want to hit me up, just hit me up on IG.
Awesome. Now, if you guys are finding value from this podcast, don't forget to show your boy some love. If you like what we're bringing you, don't forget to subscribe. It helps us continue providing value to others by reaching a broader audience. We're out here to serve, learn together, and help as many people as possible. Make sure to also smash that like button and drop a comment down below if you learned something new about pre-foreclosures today. Appreciate all the continued support. And guys, stay tuned because we're pumping these episodes every 2 weeks. We had a slight delay, but we're right back on track. And I got some awesome topics and guests coming up next that will change the entire way you do business. You definitely don't want to miss out. Best believe I'm going to keep bringing you that fire. Peace. Thanks, Jon.